This is At the 11th Hour, and I'm your host, Nathaniel Stone, but we all know who the Lord of Hosts is. Say it with me in any dialect you so choose. Yahuwah Sabaoth. Kodesh brothers and sisters, fellow members in the body of Messiah, and those in the world, thank you for giving me your attention in a world full of distractions. This is Season 2, Episode 11, the second part of the Abomination of Desolation. What sacrifice is continual? That's the real question. So if you haven't seen part 1, you gotta go check out part 1. Very important, foundational. All this stuff is cumulative, so you gotta watch this stuff. Otherwise, you might be a little bit lost. But this, we are gonna pick up on some topical information. So if you're here, then here you are, and here we go. So with that, remember in the first part, in the first series, what I covered was essentially, I brought together some prophetic links. I linked Matthew chapter 24:15, and I linked that with Daniel chapter 12 and Daniel 11:31. We connected that with Revelation 13, with Revelation 17:8. We connected that in with Mark chapter 13:14, 2 Thessalonians 2:4, and we linked a bunch of scriptures to talk about end days as a one-of-a-kind event, as we covered, and this Abomination of Desolation may have shadow types and pictures. It's a one-of-a-kind event, that happens, and that this event is related to something that comes up out of the pit of the deep, that Revelation chapter 17:8 says, and that it says that it is Elohim, it is God, and that it sits in the temple of God as though it is God. That's 2 Thessalonians 2:4, and then that connects with Daniel 11:31, and then Daniel 11:36 specifically, and then that is connected with the Abomination of Desolation. These strong ones shall arise, and they take that which is continual away. So then we started looking into what that which is continual is. We started to open the door on that. We went into Hebrews chapter 7, talking about the priesthood being changed and talking about the order of Melchizedek, the righteous priest, a high priest who is a king, who lives everlasting, who is Yahushua HaMashiach, connected with Psalms chapter 110, 1 through 5. And then we brought that information into the understanding that this change of the law, the changing of the sacrificial system, the book of Hebrews is like Leviticus 2.0. And then we connected that into that there is a Mosaic covenant, and then there is another covenant built on better promises that is the everlasting covenant. That the first covenant was like a scaffolding, a temporary system put in place until Messiah can come, because the Mosaic system talks about, is about animal sacrifices, and then Hebrews chapter 9 says that he came in with blood that is better than the blood of animals, and he did this sacrifice once and for all. And then at the very end, we talked about Romans chapter 12:1, that we are to offer ourselves as a living sacrifice, not human sacrificing as the nations twist things and do human sacrificing, that it is given for every man to die once, right? That every man, that we have this life in this mortal world that we're at, we have this existence. So that means that we live and we die. And so that means that our life should have meaning here, because if we are brought into the everlasting kingdom, this short temporary period in time is inconsequential to forever. It is not even a drop and a drop and a drop in the bucket. And so our life from start to finish, as Messiah modeled, we are to walk as he walked, that we need to model ourselves after him. And he, from birth to death, lived perfectly. He was the perfect individual. He replaced the Adam who was perfect and then sinned, a greater Adam, and now the law of sin and death is done away with, so that the punishments of the curses can be removed, and then through redemption, through repentance, through our faith of Yahushua HaMashiach doing these things, being this living sacrifice, replacing the Mosaic covenant with a covenant based on better promises, based on His blood, since it was given for every man to live and die. Him being in a mortal body was eventually going to die, because that's the mortal body. That's the path. That's what happens when you come in the flesh. Eventually you die. That's the law that is there. And so He modeled this for us. And now we are to present ourselves as a living sacrifice, not a human sacrifice. So now let's get into the material and move forward. We're going to be getting into the sacrificial system and what it was all along, what it was the whole time. It was there the whole time, and nobody and people saw it, but not everyone knew it. Now this mystery is being revealed. This should be taught everywhere, but why isn't it? Well, because Satan doesn't want us to know this stuff. Likely you have been doing sacrifices, and you don't even know what it is that you're doing on a daily basis, and you don't even realize it, that you've been doing this naturally because the Ruach's been guiding you, and the Ruach is refining all of us. So let's look here in Hebrews chapter 10:5. Again, I'm in the ISR translation. I will be referring back and forth here with the King James. I will be using these two translations primarily, but follow along in any translation you so choose. So Hebrews 10:5. This is what I like about ISR. Do you see here in ISR, do you see this text here where my cursor is? This is like a standard text. This is standard text. And then you see right here, this is bold. Might be a little bit difficult to see. It's easier when you have the paper version. You see how it's bold? Well, wherever the ISR has in bold in the New Testament, in the Brit Hadashah, you have bold writing here, and that is because it is a symbolization. It is a reference to an Old Testament quote. So this Old Testament quote is verbatim, and you can see it here in Psalms 46-8. So this Hebrews 10:5 through Hebrews 10:7 is actually Psalms 46-8, and it's a word-for-word translation. This is like a Rosetta Stone, so to speak, that allows us to understand connected words from Hebrew to Greek. This bridges the gap between linguistics, so there's no confusion. And I want to use this so there's no confusion, so we understand a word, so that when we see a word in Hebrew, or let me rephrase that, when we see a word in Greek, then we understand that that word in Greek is connected to a word in Hebrew. So when we're in the Old Testament or the Hebrew writings and we see a specific word that is found there, and we look at that word, we know that that word is connected to a Greek word. Let's find some of that here. Therefore, Hebrews 10:5, therefore, coming into the world, he says, slaughtering and meal offering you did not desire, but a body you have prepared for me. In ascending offerings and offerings for sin you did not delight. And then I said, see, I come in the roll of the book. It has been written concerning me to do your desire, O Elohim, to do your will, O God. Now, in the, I believe it's the third or the fourth part of Cannabis Commotion in season 2, episode 3 or 4, at the very end, the pearl that I shared talked about 1 Samuel chapter 15, verse 23, and in 1 Samuel 15:22, it says, does Yahuwah delight in the blood of bulls and goats more than he does essentially to listening to his commands? So what does he want more? This is the lesson that Prophet Samuel gave to King Saul before the Ruach was pulled from King Saul and then was given to King David. Was that Samuel made the point that it is more important to listen to the word of Elohim, to listen to the commands, to the Torah, which is law or instructions, to listen to what we are told to do than to do animal sacrifices. So here we have another reference to that, saying that sacrifice or slaughtering and meal offering you did not desire. Do you think Yahuwah created the animal kingdom for us to kill them? indefinitely? Well, if you've seen the episode, I believe it's episode 6, "Do All Dogs Go to Heaven?" In there, I talk about how the animal kingdom, so, just as the human kingdom, that the animals and humans, some go into the everlasting kingdom and some do not. That's Ecclesiastes 3:21. I go into that in more detail. So he did not create animals to be killed indefinitely. We are in a temporary system where some things are being done right now, whether for food sustenance or whether for spiritual implications. But this new covenant has been established and is coming into its fullness, and as it comes into its fullness, we understand more and more that is happening, and that we understand that some of these things are temporary. Some of these things are going to be there forever and ever, as like for instance the Sabbath, right? I have a shirt that says the Sabbath is the future and the rest is history. Well, what does that mean? The Sabbath is future, meaning that the Sabbath is in the future, and the word rest also means the Sabbath. So the Sabbath is future and the rest is history, or the Sabbath is future and the Sabbath is history. That means the Sabbath is in front of us and the Sabbath is behind us, the Shabbat, and it also means that the rest is history, meaning and that's the rest of the story. The rest is history. You know that phrase. I have another shirt that says Sabbath, the rest of the story, right? It's the story that people left out. Well, side point that I have here in Isaiah, Yeshayahu, chapter 66, verses 22 and 23, it's talking specifically, and it says that all flesh shall worship before him, and from Sabbath to Sabbath and new moon to new moon, or month to month, and from Sabbath to Sabbath, the other way around, Sabbath to Sabbath and new moon to new moon, or from month to month, all flesh shall come worship before me. And talking about new heavens and new earth. And so in new heavens and new earth, that is after the millennial year reign, it's saying that we're still going to be worshiping from month to month and Sabbath to Sabbath, meaning that the Sabbath is still in past the millennial year kingdom, into the new creation time. So some things are there forever and ever, have not changed and are not going to change. Some things have a certain implication and are still able to be used to taught for edification, but that system itself has been upgraded into a higher understanding. And one of the things that we're talking about here is this animal sacrificial system. And so here it says that that it has been written concerning me in Hebrews 10:7b, to do your desire, O Elohim, to do your desire, O God. So let's look here at Hebrews 10:5, and let's get some connections here, since this is Psalms chapter 46 through 8, and we'll go there next. So this is Hebrews 10:5 in the King James. Wherefore, when he cometh into the world, he saith, sacrifice and offering thou wouldest not, but a body hast thou prepared me. Well, this is talking about Messiah, yes, but let's look at this word here for sacrifice. In the Strong's Concordance, G2378, and you have the word thusia. Let me go into a full here that you could see this program in full that I have here. It says sacrifice, the act or victim, literally or figuratively sacrifice. And this word here, thusia, that we have here is a sacrifice or a victim. Sacrificing or can be related to time. Now, thusia is connected to the word thuo, which can mean to sacrifice, right? By extension, immolate, slaughter, any purpose to kill, sacrifice, or slay. So you kill your time, right? If someone said, what were you doing today? Oh, I just killed a bunch of time. It means that you sacrificed a bunch of time, but you did it through, in a bad way. You sacrificed your time improperly, right? You just wasted it, So sacrifice could mean waste. Abomination that lays waste. Abomination of desolation. Remember, that's the connection here with this teaching with sacrifices. We're going to be linking it into abomination of desolation. So here you have also thuo of the Pesachal lamb, the Passover lamb. Okay, so let's go back to where we're at. And now remember that this is a New Testament, or a New Testament verse that comes from an Old Testament verse. So this is Hebrews 10:5-7. Here, let's look for it. And remember, in Hebrews 10:5, sacrifice and meal offering you did not desire, but a body you have prepared for me. Let's go to Proverbs chapter 40, verse 6. Here we have, sacrificing and meal offering you did not desire. You have opened my ears. Ascending offering and sin offering you did not ask for. So we have here in the New Testament, we're given some additional information. And in the Old Testament, we're also given additional information. And it says here that, I have delighted to do your pleasure, O my Elohim, and your Torah is within my heart. Now in the last part one of Abomination of Desolation, I talked about the part in Hebrews that's connected with Jeremiah 31:31-34 about his Torah being written in our heart, his laws being written in our heart. And I connected that with Matthew 24:31 and Deuteronomy 30 verse 4, connecting that those gathered to the outermost part of the heaven, that we are gathered together. This is end days prophecy, thus signifying that Deuteronomy 30 is end days prophecy, and Deuteronomy 30 verses 1 and 2 talk about us coming back to the very same commands that were commanded today, which was 3,500 years ago to Moses, and that we are going to be following this Torah, this law. And as verse 10 of Deuteronomy 30 says, that when we return with all our heart and all our soul, we're going to be coming back to these commands and coming back to the very thing that was commanded today and written today in this book of the law. So we have this understanding that we're going to be coming back to that. So Hebrews talks about that written in our hearts, which is Jeremiah 30:31-34. Here we have in Psalms chapter 40 verse 8, it says that your Torah is within my heart. So already ahead of the game, that the Torah is in his heart. So let's look here at Psalms 40 verse 6, and let's look at that word that we have there for slaughtering is the Hebrew word here for zabach. Now, zabach means properly a slaughter, that is the flesh of an animal, by implication a sacrifice, the victim or the act, offering or sacrifice. And we have here that it's connected with Passover, right? The Pesach lamb, animal sacrifice, also connected with thank offering, sacrifices of righteousness or sacrifices of strife, or sacrifices to dead things. It's talking about sacrifice, annual sacrifice. Now, this word here, zabach, is a Strong's 20. It's H for Hebrew, 2077. And now here we have in 2076 zabach also. So the two words are written the same, just different vowel points. That's Nakud problems. We can get into that later. But regardless, the word is the same, zabach. So here we have a slaughtering of an animal to kill, offer, slay. It's the same thing. Sacrifice, to slaughter for sacrifice, slaughter for eating, to slaughter in divine judgment, slaughter to offer sacrifice, and there we have the understanding that is there. So when we see the word thusia or thuo in Greek, we understand that zabech or zabach in Hebrew are connected words. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take that understanding and we are going to upgrade that. So we're going to upgrade that understanding, and let's start looking at some Old Testament verses to understand that what this animal sacrificial system is supposed to teach us. Because remember, in the first part of this series, Hebrews chapter 9 and 10 says that these fleshly regulations are a parable until a time of setting matters straight. And this time of setting matters straight of this first covenant being aged and disappearing, and the second covenant coming into its fullness, that the time of setting matters straight, which it says in Hebrews 9:10, that it was done once for all with a blood that is better than the blood of animals through Yahushua HaMashiach, Jesus Christ, done this once and for all, that the way into the most holy, into the most kodesh, is now made manifest, because the first tent, the first tabernacle, the first temple system is no longer, this physical temple system is not in existence, because now we're going to talk about the spiritual temple, this upgraded spiritual understanding that we, under the priestly order of Melchizedek, so since there is a high priest, we have to be priests. Since there is a king of kings, we have to be a king, or priestesses and queens. We need to act as royalty and as priests. And priests, kings know the law, and they know how to govern and to judge righteously. They should, at least. Righteous kings. Melchizedek is the righteous king, and so kings in the everlasting covenant know how to judge righteously, how to discern righteously, and then priests know how, what, where, who, when, why to sacrifice, what it means, the definition, the understanding. So we are to have this priestly understanding of what sacrifice is, and that's what we're learning in the book of Hebrews, and that's what we're learning. We actually have it all throughout the Old Testament and the New Testament. It's all one big book. We have this understanding. So let's turn to some. We're going to pick a bunch of so-called Old Testament scriptures out. So let's first look at Hosea chapter 14, and we're going to go to Hosea chapter 14, verse 6. Sorry, where's it? Here we go. Okay, found it. So we have here 14:2. Take words with you and return to Yahuwah. Say to him, take away all crookedness and accept what is good, and we render the bulls of our lips. So he says here that we render the bulls of our lips. Now, where else do we see that? We saw that before, Hebrews chapter 13 from last part. Verse 13-15, through him then let us continually offer up a slaughter offering of praise to Elohim, that is the fruit of our lips, giving thanks to his name. So we have Hosea, and we even see that here, that is linked here. We have Hosea 14:2, which is linked to Hebrews 13:15, and it's talking about here in Hebrews the fruit of our lips, but in Hosea 14:2. It is the bull of our lips. Now, not in the American sense of the word bull, but a bull is a clean animal that is able to be sacrificed on the altar. And so now we are judged by every idle word coming out of our mouth. This is a New Testament scripture. I can share that momentarily of where that's at. But we are judged by everything that comes forth out of our mouth. That is so Therefore, the bulls of our lips is supposed to be a clean offering without blemish. It's supposed to be perfect, to be set apart. So here I have it pulled up here. It's Matthew chapter 12, 36 and 37. And I say to you that for every idle word men speak, they shall give an account of it in the day of judgment. For by your words you shall be declared righteous, and by your words you shall be declared unrighteous. So if we are judged by every idle word, that every word coming out of our mouth we are judged by, therefore the fruit of our lips in Hebrews 13:15, or the bull of our lips in Hosea 14:2, is connected with things coming out of our mouth. The bulls, the clean offering out of our mouth. The fruit our works, and coming out of our mouth. It takes work to talk. Coming out of our mouth, we are what defiles a man is not what goes into a man, but what comes out of, because he pulls things out of his heart. And so a righteous person speaks righteous things, an unrighteous person speaks unrighteous things. Matthew chapter 7 verses 15 through 20 talks about these wolves in sheep's clothing, and that by their fruits you shall know them. Also talking about a good tree is known by its works. A good tree produces good fruit, and a bad tree produces bad fruit, and a good tree can't produce bad, and a bad tree can't produce good. And that's what it is I'm talking about. So this fruit of our lips, this bull of our lips, is being connected with the animal sacrificial system, and to get people to think that it's not just about killing a bull and sacrificing it on an altar, is it? No, it's not. It's more than that. These Hebrews 9 and 10 talk about a matter of a time until setting matters straight, that this new covenant, this Brit Hadashah, sets matters straight, and that these fleshly regulations of worship are a parable, are a similitude, a comparison to what we are doing now. So therefore, when someone would take a bull and they would sacrifice it in the old system, Today it is the fruit of our lips. It is a living sacrifice coming out of our mouth. It is an upgraded priesthood system, the priesthood of Melchizedek. So now that we have that point, we'll come back to Hebrews 13:15 a little bit later. But let's move on to the next point. Let's go to Hosea again. Let's go to Hosea chapter 6, verse 6. Well, let's look in verse 5. Therefore I have, we'll go to 6. For I delight in loving commitment and not slaughtering, and in the knowledge of Elohim more than ascending offerings. So that means that he's saying that and now let's look at this word slaughtering. Let's double check if it's zabach. We covered this. Let's look at it. Zabach, right? That's the word for sacrifice. Now, I like the King James rendition better than slaughtering. I do like the word sacrifice better. I think that word has a little bit better meaning, understanding. But again, like I said, we'll be going back and forth between King James and ISR. So he's saying that he delighted in mercy and not sacrifice, as King James says, and the knowledge of God more than burnt offerings. And that is in line with 1 Samuel 15, 22, and 23, what Samuel said to Saul that we talked about earlier. So, scripture upon scripture, line upon line, precept upon precept. So here he's saying that he delights in loving commitment and not zabach, thusia, these animal sacrifices. He delights in the knowledge of Elohim more than ascending offerings. Not that, more than means that he does delight in those, but more than. So now let's move forward and let's go to we covered the Psalms 40, 6 through 8, talking about slaughtering and meal offering you did not desire. You have opened my ears, ascending offering and sin offering you did not ask for. He didn't ask us for it to do sin offering because he didn't ask us to sin. But since it happened, now this system then put in place, but now through the blood of Messiah, this matter of setting straight has happened, that these things are now a parable for the upgraded system that we are doing. So let's go now to Psalms chapter 50, verse 8. And see what Psalms 50, verse 8 says. So we have here that I did not reprove you for your zabach, sacrifices, slaughterings, and your ascending offerings are continually before me. I do not take a bull from your house, nor goats from of your pens, for every beast of the forest is mine, the cattle on 1,000 hills. And then let's continue to go forward. I know all the birds of the mountains, and all moving in my field are mine. If I were hungry, I would not speak to you, for the world is mine and all that fills it. Do I eat the flesh of bulls or drink the blood of goats? Well, John chapter 4, verses 20 through 24 says that Elohim is a spirit, and those that worship him need to worship in spirit and truth. So he's saying that he's a spirit. Does he eat these carnal things? Drink the blood of carnal things? He says in verse 14, slaughter thanksgiving to Elohim, or in King James it will say, offer unto God thanksgiving, and pay thy vows to the Most High, and call upon me in the day of distress. Let me rescue you, and you esteem me, or let me rescue you, and thou shalt glorify me, as it says. So, so as we see there, we see a connection that these sacrifices is, verse 14 says, a sacrifice of thanksgiving. So that means taking our time out of our life to thank him. And how do we thank him? Our actions, our prayer, right? These are physical things. It's a spiritual understanding that we are physically doing. So you can't hyper spiritualize it. You can't hyper spiritualize and say that Jesus Christ is my Sabbath. Therefore, the Sabbath is within me. Well, that's hyper spiritualizing. The Sabbath is an action that you do. Yeah, he is the master of the Sabbath. But we can get to that at a later point in time. But in reference to Sabbath study, but it says here that. Slaughter thanksgiving to Elohim and pay your vows to the Most High. And then he tells you in verse 15 to call upon him in the day of distress. Well, what is a day of distress? Abomination of desolation. It takes that which is continual away. But we're going to get to that. We're building up into it, into the revelation of the understanding of of some more implications that people probably have not connected. So you have a call upon him in the day of distress. Let me rescue you, and you esteem me. So this Thanksgiving is the vows of the Most High. So let's move forward. Let's go to Psalms chapter. We're going to go more in this verse here. Let's go to. The end of the chapter here in Psalms 50, verse 23, and it says, whoever slaughters praise esteems me, and to him who prepares a way I show the deliverance of Elohim. Let's look at what that word is for deliverance. And that word for deliverance is exactly what I thought it was, Yasha. I didn't know, but I had a understanding, Yasha, which is short, which is a tongue-in-cheek, or it is a shadow type in picture of Yeshua or Yahushua, the dialect that you want to talk for Jesus Christ. This is why changing his name to Jesus, changing it outside of what the Hebraic understanding, Jesus' name is actually a derivative of Joshua. And we can get into that in a name study and understand why these names were perverted. But Jesus' name is Jesus Christ is actually Joshua Christ. His name G2424 is found 923 times in the scriptures, according to BibleHub.com. And of that 923 times, 919 times is talking about Messiah, but 4 times is talking about not Messiah. Luke 3:29, Hebrews chapter 4:8, Colossians chapter, I believe it's 4:11, and then it's Acts chapter 7:45. Acts 7:45 being the strong one, talking about Joshua son of Nun, and Joshua son of Nun in Acts 7:45 is written G2424, the Strong's number, and it's written the same way as Jesus Christ's name is written. So you can't have them both. You can't translate a written name and pronounce it one as Jesus and the other as Joshua. That is very, very bad translation and a very, very bad doctrine. In fact, it's intentional manipulation. So that means that they both have to be Joshua or they both have to be Jesus. But there is no letter J in modern or ancient Hebrew. Therefore, and J is only about 400 to 500 years old. Therefore, there is no name Jesus anywhere in Hebrew. And so his name has to be Joshua. So it's a derivative of Joshua. It's a little side nugget there for people to have some understanding. But here we have that word there, as we said, for salvation. That word salvation is Yasha, which is as in Yeshua or Yahusha, any dialect that you want to use for a derivative of Joshua that is there. So he says here that that whoever slaughters praise esteems me, and to him who prepares a way I show the Yasha, the Jesus of God. I mean, however you want to call it, the salvation, which Jesus or Joshua means the salvation of Yahuwah. So you could say, and I shall show the salvation of Yahuwah of Elohim. However you want to kind of play with that verse, but let's leave it as it's written. I show the salvation, the Yasha, the Yahusha, the Yeshua of Elohim, of God. So he's saying that whoever slaughters praise glorifies me, esteems me. So here we're going to have a slaughtering. Now let's look at that word for slaughter. I want to double check. Let's see what it is. Zabach. There it is. There's the word zabach. So it's connected with thusia in Greek. So we're building a case, building an understanding. What I want you to see here is, check this out. You have this word zabach, thanksgiving, and then you have this word here for zabach and praise. So we have praise and thanks, to thank and praise. I want you to remember that. Very, very key thing to remember. We're going to connect that with that which is continual, the continual sacrifice. We're going to see this word praise and we're going to see this word thanks. So I want you to remember these things as he's talking in the Old Testament about sacrifice, about zabach. And again, he's using these words, zabach, sacrifice, which is typically talked about animals, but now he's using this word zabach for the word praise and zabach for the word thanksgiving, talking about sacrificing of thanksgiving and sacrificing of praise. So they're already pointing to this upgraded system that's going to happen, which in Hebrews 9, 9, and 10, remember, it's a parable of these fleshly regulations to come. And that the time of setting matters straight comes through the blood of Messiah in the death, burial, and resurrection, which establishes this new covenant, which is being brought into its fullness. So let's continue and go forward into the next part, and we have Psalms chapter 51 verse 16. And so in Psalms chapter 51 16 we have starting in 15. O Yahuwah, open my lips. Remember, sing praise, thanksgiving. Open my lips, and that my mouth declare your praise. There's that word praise again. For you do not desire in slaughtering. That's the word zabach. We'll double check, right? But we're going to see a commonality here. That word zabach, sorry, it's a little off screen, but you saw there. That's that same number, 2077 and 2076, if you remember that. So we have here, for you do not desire in zabach, in sacrifice. Now he's talking primarily about animals, or I would give it. You do not delight in ascending offering. He says the sacrifice, the zabach of Elohim, are a broken spirit, a heart broken and crushed, O Elohim. These you do not despise. Do good in your good pleasure to Zion, that's Zion. Build the walls of Yerushalayim. Then you would delight in zabach, in sacrifice of Zadik, righteousness. In ascending offering, in complete ascending offering, then young bulls, the bulls of our lips, would be offered on your slaughter place, on your altar. So here he's saying that sacrifice righteousness, a living sacrifice, Romans 12:1, offer yourself a living sacrifice, set apart, holy. So he's saying to sacrifice righteousness, sacrifice your holiness. Don't cave into the wickedness of this world. And he says that in the ascending offerings, in complete ascending offering, then these young bulls, these calves of our lips, the bulls of our lips, would be offered on your altar. So here we have in Psalms, we have an upgraded understanding of this sacrificial system which is already being put in place. So now let's go ahead and look in Psalms chapter 54, verse 6. I want to give an understanding of how I got this information. When just coming to mind here, when I got called into Torah, I got called into Torah supernaturally. I did not get called into Torah through a man. I was out of my body, and now in coming back, I've been given a mission. And right now, I am fulfilling part of my mission that I've been given to do. But I am just a person. We all have a mission, and we all have some part to do in the body of Messiah. We're all part of a body. So you have a mission, and you have a mission, and you have a mission. And you have things that you need to do, and you need to pray and ask whether it's perceived as great or small. Even the smallest things have the greatest influence. Sometimes the littlest tiniest thing can butterfly effect into a great big avalanche. It takes only one snowflake to start an avalanche. So maybe you got to be that snowflake, not in the liberal sense, but we are all special snowflakes in our own sense. Just, don't let that get to your head on that matter. And I say that also, that even though this supernatural event happened, I don't want you to let you think that it got to my head. In fact, it can be kind of a burden. It's across the bear at times. But I want to share that when in my first year in coming into this upgraded understanding, in my first 3 months of study, all of a sudden, that's when it was revealed to me about the deception of Rome. And I was like, what? All of Romanized Christianity? And like, yeah, all of Romanized Christianity, that whole institution. I was like, no way. He's like, the whole institution. He revealed to me and showed me. And I thought, I'm like, am I the only one who sees this? And then all of a sudden I got brought into my mishpachah, and they're like, yeah, we got that too. We understood that too. And I'm like, okay, so that's like basically like Paul coming into the road to Damascus and then going to Arabia for 3 years, as Galatians 1 talks about it, and then coming back to Jerusalem and double checking that what he's doing and saying is correct with Peter and James, and then going about his ministry. It's kind of a similar thing on that, but I want to share that as I was reading, I was told that I'll be guided along the way and told to read the Torah, to read the scriptures, the whole thing from cover to cover. And so in my first time reading through, and I'm getting here in the book of Psalms, I hear the Ruach tell me, I want you to, every place you see in Psalms and Proverbs that's talking about sacrifice, I want you to circle and put a special mark. And then I read through it, and then it's like, okay, go back now and gather all the special marks. And so then I gathered all the special marks, and that's where I got this study at. And now here it is getting presented to you in upgraded understanding and studying. It's great. I'm really excited to get this information out. Finally, sorry it's taken so long. Please forgive my incompetence in my delay on taking so long. This is in my 7th year here in my 7th cycle in this Torah walk. But let's continue to go here. So we have Psalms chapter 54, and we have Psalms 54 verse 6, and we have here, and it says, voluntarily I slaughter to you, I praise your name, O Yahuwah, for it is good. So he talks about a voluntary praise, or voluntary sacrifice is what he's saying here. And then he's saying that I praise your name. So here we have praise connected with name. I want you to remember thank, remember praise. Now remember your name, O Yahuwah. Remember name, Shem, right? That's the word that would be Shem that would be there. Let's double check. Let's look at that. What do we have? Shem. There's the word Shem that is there. And then let's double check the word sacrifice. There it is, Zabach. Okay. So voluntarily I slaughter to you. I praise your name, O Yahuwah, for it is good. I want you to remember the name, the word name itself, and then also remember here, Yahuwah that we have here that's in the Hebrew there. So a voluntary sacrifice is connected with praising of name. Okay. Now, I remember, and I don't want to go there, but because I don't want to lose my place. But in Song of Songs, Song of Solomon 1:3, actually, we'll go ahead and go there. Why not, right? You got this computer system, and at a touch of a button. So let's go there. Sorry, 1:3. Here we go. For fragrance, here. Oh, wow. I'm glad we went there. Look at that. I would have missed that. For fragrance, your oils are good. Remember the word fragrance, okay? Your oils are good. Your name is oil poured forth. So now his name, his character, his authority, his Shem, connected with Yahuwah, is fragrant, and it's oil that is good, and his name is oil poured forth. The 5 wise virgins of the 10 virgins, and the 5 foolish and the 5 wise had oil in their lamps. We'll get into that in the 144,000 teaching in a little bit. So we have. Oh, what does Ecclesiastes 7:1 say? I don't know. A good name is better than precious oil, and the day of death than the day of one's birth. Okay, so a good name is better than precious oil. So your name is oil poured forth. And so that means that the 5 wise virgins had his name, his character, his power, authority within them. They're producing olives in their branch, and they're grafted into the root. Romans chapter 11 stuff. So let's go ahead and get back to where we were at. Where were we at? We were in not there. We were in Psalms chapter 54, verse 6, talking about voluntarily I slaughter to you. I praise your name, O Yahuwah. So there, I praise your name. That's oil, oil poured forth, O Yahuwah, for it is good. Let me go there. So now we're going to go to Psalms Tehillim, chapter 69. If I can grab it, there we go. Okay. So in Psalms chapter 69, and we're going to go into verse 30. Psalm 69:30, I praise the name of Elohim with a song. So now we have praise connected with song. And I make him great with thanksgiving, continuing on. And this pleases Yahuwah more than an ox, a bull with horns and hooves. So it's connecting with sacrifice again. The humble shall see, they rejoice. You who seek Elohim, and your hearts live. So here we have a connection with praising the name with a song and making him great with thanksgiving. And this is what pleases him more than an ox, more than the animal sacrificial system. So now let's look in Psalms chapter 72 in verse 15. And it says, and he shall live, and the gold of Sheba be given to him, and prayer be made for him continually. Let him be blessed all day long. So here we have the word prayer connected to continual. I want you to remember prayer. Remember, I want you to remember thanksgiving and praise. I want you to remember continual. Remember his name and sacrifice. We're going to be remembering these things. But here we have talking about a prayer connected in with continual. I want you to specifically remember prayer is connected in with continual. Okay, so now then the next part that we're going to go in is Psalms chapter 96, verse 8. So in Psalms 96, verse 8, it says, ascribe to Yahuwah the esteem, the glory. I believe that word esteem is kabod. Let's just double check there. Can you see that? Kabod? Yeah, you see it. Okay, so ascribe to Elohim the kabod, the glory, the esteem of his name. Bring an offering, come into his courts. Bow yourselves to Yahuwah. What do we do when we pray, right? We're bowing essentially to Yahuwah in the splendor of holiness, set apartness, tremble before him all earth. So here we have ascribe to Yahuwah the kabod, the glory of his name, bring an offering and come into his courts. Well, what offering do you think that you bring into Elohim, who is not flesh and blood, but is a spirit, as John 4:20-24 says, Elohim is spirit, worship in spirit and truth. What offering do you think that you could bring to bring a spirit? Does he drink the blood of bulls and goats and calves and oxen and sheep? Is that what it says? Well, he already said that he does not do that. And so what is the offering that we bring into his courts? Well, let's go ahead and look at the next part of this. Psalms chapter 100, verse 4, right? Here a little, there a little, line upon line, precept upon precept. that these things are buried like gold all through the scriptures, and then his set apart, his holy, his kings are to gather this together and then put it into one full collected piece as an offering to the body and an offering to the Most High. These actions are what please him. The knowledge of Elohim is what pleases him. That's what we've covered, what Hosea 6:6. So continuing, Psalms chapter 100 verse 4. Enter into his gates with thanksgiving. There it is, thanksgiving, and into his courts with praise. Give thanks to him, bless his name. So what did we cover in Psalms 96:8? It says, ascribe to Yahuwah the kabod of his name, bring an offering, come into his courts. Now it's telling us in Psalms 100 verse 4 that this offering to bring into his courts is what? Enter into his gates with thanksgiving and into his courts with praise. There's praise, there's thanksgiving. To give thanks to him, bless his name. There is the word thanks, there is the word praise, there is his name. And this is connected with what? An offering, and this offering that we bring is connected with sacrifice. Okay, so now let's go to the next one. Psalms 107. Whoop. Oh no, I hope that didn't mess everything up. Okay, Psalms 107, 22. There's a screensaver there. Psalms 107, 22. Well, there we go. And so this says, and let them slaughter slaughterings of thanksgiving and relate his works with rejoicing. So we are to slaughter. So let's look at this here in Hebrew. What do we have here? We have, we are to zabach. Zabach. Slaughter. Of what? Of thanksgiving. So there is sacrifice connected with thanksgiving. Once again, that we're connected in that. So now, putting these three parts specifically in order, we have ascribed to Psalms 96:8, Psalms 104, Psalms 107:22. Ascribe to Yahuwah the kabod, the esteem of his name, bring an offering and come into his courts, enter into his gates with thanksgiving and into his courts with praise. Give thanks to him, bless his name, and let them slaughter, or sacrificings of thanksgiving and relate his works with rejoicing. So here, thanksgiving is directly connected into the word zabach, and then we also have that thanks and that thanksgiving is what we bring into his courts and bring into his gates, and this is the offering that as we esteem his name. It's all right there. This is the sacrificial system. This is the system that they knew in the Old Testament. As they're doing the animal sacrifices, the scripturally astute knew this information, and as they're writing inspired writings, they're putting that in poetry and they're putting that in the scriptures to try to teach people in song. And song is itself, if it's to Yahuwah, a song itself is sacrifice, and it's singing praise to his name. This is part of the sacrificial system. You guys, we've been doing this the whole time, and we didn't know that we're doing priest work. But how does that connect into with the abomination of desolation? So we're going to connect that in later, but we need to really, really drive the point home. And I really want to bring all this information out about sacrifice. So let's look at Psalms chapter 116, and let's look in verse 17. So in Psalms 116, I slaughter you a slaughter of thanksgiving. Or let's look in Hebrews in it. And I will offer to thee the sacrifice, there's that word zabach, of thanksgiving, and that word offer, so there it is, zabach again. I will zabach, I will sacrifice. So in King James they say offer to thee the sacrifice. It should say I will sacrifice the sacrifice of thanksgiving, and will call upon the what? Upon the name of the Lord, upon the name of Yahuwah. So now here we have yet again, if we're seeing a commonality, a theme of what we're seeing, we are seeing that the name is connected with sacrifice, and that's connected with thanksgiving. Okay? And I pay my vows to Yahuwah in the presence of all his people, in the courts of the house of Yahuwah, in your midst, O Yerushalayim, praise Yah. Now, what is that praise Yah? Let's look at what praise Yah is. I want to know personally. Halal. Right. Exactly what I thought. Hallelujah. There it is right there. So you have halal or halalu, and then you have what? You have Yah. That is there. So hallelujah. There's the word hallelujah. And so praise Yah, right? Praise Yah. There we are. So sorry, I get excited. I love this. This is like a passion. I'm just like filled with life when I'm talking about life. I can't help it. I'm sorry. But I'm not sorry. Sorry, but not sorry. So here we have that a sacrifice of thanksgiving and calling upon the name. So now let's go into Psalms chapter 119, and let's look in. Way down there, 108. Please accept the voluntary offerings of my mouth, O Yahuwah, and teach me your right rulings. And he says here, my life is in my hand continually. In your Torah, I have not forgotten. So here we have continual regarding to these voluntary offerings of my mouth, the bulls of our lips, an unblemished offering coming out of our mouth, judged by every word, every idle word, everything that comes out of our mouth is to be set apart. O Yahuwah, and teach me your right rulings. So this is the sacrificial system that has been in place, and that is being upgraded so that we don't have to have this physical temple to be able to do this continual sacrifice. So let's go to Psalms 141:2. Let my prayer be prepared before you as incense, the lifting up of my hands as the evening offering. Now remember, evening offering, we will remember this specifically when we go to 1 Chronicles chapter 23. I want you to remember that this prayer is prepared before you as incense, the lifting up of my hands as the evening offering. Wow, we're already at an hour. Wow, time goes by so fast. Okay, so let my prayer be prepared before you as incense, the lifting up of my hands as the evening offering. O Yahuwah, set a guard for my mouth. Why? Because we're judged by every idle word that is there. And so the fruit of our lips, the bowl of our lips, the clean offering of our mouth, watch over the door of my lips. Let not my heart be inclined to evil, to practice the deeds of wrongness with men working wickedness, and let me not eat of their delicacies. Okay. So, prayer is being prepared as incense. Now, that is what all that I have. Maybe there's more that I missed, but that's all I have for Psalms. But there is more to go, and we're going to go a little bit over an hour, as we kind of sometimes do. I'm sorry, I try to make it an hour, but it's just going to have to be a little bit over. Thank you for bearing with me. But if you're hungry, this is definitely brain food. So I hope you're being nourished as I was nourished in getting this information. Now remember, Psalms 141:2, let my prayer be prepared before you as incense. So prayer is connected with incense, and this is connected with the evening offering, which is zabak, which is Hebrew. Now the Hebrew word for sacrifice. And so now this lifting up my hands, this prayer, this incense, let's look in the book of Revelation, and let's look in Revelation chapter 5, verse 8. And when he took the scroll of the four living creatures, and the 24 elders fell down before the Lamb, each one holding a harp and golden bowls filled with incense, which are the prayers of the saints, the Kedoshim, the holy ones. All of those of Yasharal, all of those of the new kingdom, the kingdom to come, those of in the first resurrection, Revelation chapter 20, verse 4 and 6. All these set apart ones, their prayers are incense, and they are being offered before the Lamb. Okay, so and let's go to the next part that connects in with this in Revelation 8, chapter 8, verses 3 and 4. And another messenger, that would be angel, Malach in Hebrew, came and stood at the altar, slaughter place, holding a golden censer, and much incense was given to him, that he should offer it with the prayers of all the kedoshim, the saints, the holy ones, upon the golden altar which was before the throne. And the smoke of the incense with the prayers of the kedoshim went up before Elohim from the hand of the Malach, the angel, the messenger. So here we have prayer being connected directly. Prayer is connected directly with incense, and incense and prayer is connected with zabak. It is part of the sacrificial system. So every time you pray, you are doing a spiritual sacrifice, and a physical one too, because when you pray, it's taking time out of your life that you could be sleeping, spending time with your wife, doing studying, I don't know, riding a dirt bike. I don't have a dirt bike, but riding whatever you want to do, flying a plane, whatever you want to do, swimming laps, working out at the gym. You're doing a sacrifice by taking your time from praying, and also offering the bull of our lips. Our mouth is, as we are talking, it is a sacrifice of time, sacrifice in our life. We only live for so long. So all these things are sacrifices. This is what we're doing, and we no longer have to go to a physical temple because it's done away with, it's gone, been torn down. And so now we can do these things under the order of Melchizedek, and we can do them mobily as like a Bluetooth wireless connection. We can be doing these things, and through Yahushua HaMashiach, as he brought, he made the way into the Most High. Now through this mediator, we can be reestablished to our Creator directly without having to go through Moshe or the priestly system. Now we as priests can go through our high priest. We as kings can go through our King of Kings, and can be connected into the root, into everlasting life, into Yahuwah Elohim, into the Lord God. So let's go into now the book of Proverbs, and then we'll probably finish a little bit after Proverbs, but we're nearly done. So check the time limit. Sometimes I say that we got like a while to go, so I'll try to close things out. Look at Proverbs in a timely manner, but as the Ruach guides. Proverbs chapter 7, verse 14. Slaughterings. This would be. Let's double check. There it is, Zabak. Slaughterings, sacrifice of peace offerings are with me. Today I've paid my vows. So here he's talking about paying his vows, talking about a peace offering. So now this peace offering, now is it talking necessarily? So making shalom. So when we make shalom with our brothers and sisters that need to be made shalom with, we don't want to partake with unrighteousness. So don't make shalom with unrighteousness. But we can make shalom to a degree. We can agree to disagree. We can do to the best that we can do, but making shalom is a level of peace offering. Wow, this is just coming to me right now. I do want to share that in talking about this. This is 2 John, only one chapter. This is 2 John chapter 1:6, only one chapter, and this is the love that we walk according to his commands. This is the command, that as you have heard from the beginning, that you should walk in it. Well, that's what, 3,500 years ago, even beyond, right? Noach knew about Torah regulations before Moses was given the Torah, but still, because many who are leading astray or deceiving, I do like King James says, I like the word deceiving, for many deceivers are entered into the world. Okay, so many who are leading astray or deceiving went out into the world, who do not confess Yahushua HaMashiach as coming in the flesh, Jesus Christ as coming in the flesh. This one is he who is deceiving and is the Antichrist. Now, this person confessing Yahushua HaMashiach is more than just lip service. It is actions and doing, right? It's not just hearers of the word. James chapter 1 and 2 talks about this, but the doers of the word. So it's not just the confessing with our lips, it's the doing of it. This is what it is. So continue on. But he's saying that someone who does not hear and do, so who does not shema, someone, that's a Hebrew word for listen and do, someone who is not confessing, is someone who is deceiving and the Antichrist. See to yourselves that we do not lose what we worked for, but that we might receive a complete reward. Now, this is very important to understand this information. Very, very important to understand this information. Verse 9 and 10, everyone who is transgressing, that is sinning, breaking the law, and not staying in the teaching of Messiah does not possess Elohim. If you deny Messiah, you don't possess Elohim. There's other scriptures that say that too. I think that this might be one of them. Yeah, 1 John 2:22. Let me put it up in the main screen so you can see this here. Who is the liar except the one denying that Yahushua is the Messiah, that Jesus is the Christ? This is the Antichrist, the anti-Messiah, the one denying the Father and the Son. And so we were to see, if we were going to go there, that if you don't have the Son, you don't have the Father. You don't have the Father, you don't have the Son. That's how this system works. So let's continue here. It's where we're at, is that the one who stays in the teaching of Messiah possesses both the Father and the Son. If anyone comes to you and does not bring this teaching, do not receive him into your house, nor greet him, for he who greets him shares in his wicked works. That is so powerful to understand. You need to understand this, brothers and sisters. It says here in 2 John 1:10, if anyone comes to you and does not bring this teaching, what teaching? The teachings of Messiah. And if you remember, in the deception of Rome, we talked about 2 Corinthians 11 verse 4, about a different Jesus, about a different Holy Spirit, and a different gospel message, one that they did not share, but one that an enemy brought in. This Antichrist message changed and brought a different Messiah, a different spirit, and a different gospel message. And Galatians 1 says that anyone who does this is accursed. Man or angel is accursed who does this. So it says here that that if anyone comes to you and does not bring this teaching, who does not bring the gospel of Yahushua HaMashiach, do not receive him into your house nor greet him. Now, it doesn't say that you can't say hi. Greet him, for he who greets him shares in his wicked works. It's talking about making a level of shalom with someone, which is why I brought that up from Proverbs that we're talking about. If you make shalom with someone who is doing wickedness and unrighteousness, then what you are doing is the sin of Achan, and you are participating and enabling in sin. And if you participate and enable in sin, you share in their wicked works. Achan's children, family, did not steal the things from Jericho, but they were all brought together, stoned and set on fire and killed together. Even though Achan was the one who did the sin, but the others were participatory in it because they shared in his wicked works. They made shalom with him and didn't talk about that situation. They didn't tell him to get rid of it. They didn't tell him to confess his sin. They didn't tell him to let everyone know. And it caused about 36 Israelites to die when they went up against the city of Ai, and they died. So therefore, those people who died because people were participatory in sin. And we, part of loving our neighbor as ourselves, Leviticus chapter 19, 17 through 18 says that we need to reprove our neighbor for certain, or our brother for certain, and bear no sin because of him. And we shall love our neighbor as ourselves. Part of loving your neighbor as yourself is reproving our neighbor. And you can't reprove if you don't know what sin is. If the definition of sin has been corrupted, then how can you tell someone what right and wrong is? This is all part of the deception of Rome that Rome has done. Go see that 3-part series. But continuing forward in this, if anyone comes to you and does not bring this teaching, do not receive him into your house nor greet him. So what does that mean? Don't receive him into your house or greet him, for he who greets him shares in his wicked works. Well, it's talking about don't let him into the house, into your eye gates, your mouth gates, your ear gates, your mind gate, the gates of your spiritual house. Don't let these false antichrist teachings enter into your house as the living temple. Don't let it enter into your temple. Don't receive them. Don't make shalom with these false teachings, with these wolves in sheep's clothing. What does it say at the end of 2 Corinthians 11:4? It says that if you do it, that you may as well endure it. That you're going to endure these terrible things, but you don't have to. Reject this stuff. But 17 and 100 years later, here people are still following the Roman Christ and not following the actual one that's spoken about in the scriptures. They're under this deception of Rome. Share this information with your brothers and sisters. Share this with your fellow neighbors. Share them this upgraded understanding. Make it your own. Understand this yourself. Get this and go do your witnessing. Do your sacrifices yourself. Very, very important. But remember that people that don't have the teaching of Messiah does not possess Elohim. They can't have God if they have a perverted Messiah. And at what point, if your engine is supposed to be 10 degrees over top dead center and you're 9 degrees over top dead center, it's still probably going to work. But if you're 50 degrees over top dead center, you're probably gonna put a valve stem through your piston head or what have you. That's a internal combustion, a parable there, analogy. But regardless, if someone has some level of distortion within them, things may work to a degree, but as we get refined and our precision internal spiritual combustion gets more upgraded, these spiritual gifts are going to start flowing more and more and more, and we'll gain in our understanding as a well-tuned, a finely olive-oiled machine, right? That is there. So let's go back into where we're at. Again, I ad-libbing and wanted to do this in a reasonable time because we have more points to cover in part 3. I didn't know how long this series was going to be, and wow, it is taking off. So let's look now. Remember, in Proverbs 7:14 says, "Slaughter or sacrifice of peace offerings are with me. Today I have paid my vows." And as he said in, that paying vows, that peace offering, we want to make shalom. We want to sacrifice shalom with the proper individual. We don't want to make shalom with devils and demons. So Proverbs 15, verse 8 says, "The slaughtering, the sacrifice, the zabach of the wrong ones is an abomination to Yahuwah, but the prayer of the straight is his delight." So now, if you remember in Do All Dogs Go to Heaven, I talked about this being chiastic poetry, and that's why they're both highlighted in purple and pink there. So in chiastic poetry, once you find the subject, you can take the two subjects and interchange them, and it adds depth to the scripture verse it doesn't change it improperly, but the poetry adds depth. So let's read it the way it's written, and then let's read it in the chiastic poetry with the two subjects switched. So the sacrifice of the wrong ones is an abomination to Yahuwah, but the prayer of the straight is his delight. Let's read it the other way. The prayer of the wrong ones is an abomination to Yahuwah, but the sacrifice of the straight is his delight. Therefore, in chiastic poetry, the synonyms here connecting is that prayer and sacrifice are connected. They are a synonym of one another. But we already covered that in Psalms, in the book of Psalms. We continually saw that prayer is sacrifice, prayer is incense, part of the sacrificial system as the evening offering. All these things are interconnected. So this is just another case of evidence that is pointing to the information that I'm sharing regarding spiritual sacrifice. Remember, Abomination of Desolation, what sacrifice is continual? Animal sacrifice, start, stop, start, stop, start, stop, start, stop. How many times does it start? Does it stop? Does it start? Does it stop? And does it continue? And does it stop? How many times, right? But what has been continual all this time? Okay, so let's look at the next portion here. Let's look at Proverbs 21:3. Proverbs 21:3 says, to do righteousness and right ruling is more acceptable than a zabach, than a sacrifice. Well, that's what we've been talking about this. 1 Samuel 15:22 and 23 talk about this. A bunch of spots in Psalms talking about this. Now we have another one in Proverbs, line upon line, precept upon precept, to do Zadik, righteousness, and right ruling is more acceptable to Yahuwah than a slaughtering. So, and righteousness is connected with Zabak. So righteousness is part of sacrificing. We're told in Proverbs that we are to sacrifice righteousness. Okay, and this is acceptable more than what? Animals and blood and of bulls and goats and calves. Okay, final one here in Proverbs 21:27. And it says here, the slaughtering of the wrong is an abomination, but how much more when he brings it with wickedness. Now, so we said that slaughtering and prayer can be connected. So you could say the prayer of the wrong is an abomination, which is what it said in the previous portion that we covered there in Proverbs 15:8. But the sacrifice of the wrong is an abomination. How much more when he brings it with wickedness? Okay, so that's what we have. Now let's go to one more portion here, Ecclesiastes 5:1, and then we're going to make the big connection. So let's go to Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verse 1. Guard your steps when you go to the house of Elohim, to the house of God, and draw near to listen rather than to give the sacrifice of fools, for they do not know that they do evil. Why? Because they don't study. It's not that they're fools without cause. They're fools in many cases because of their own choice. They choose to sacrifice foolishly, sacrifice their time to binge watching garbage media, Romanized television, without learning, with no balance, no understanding, seekers of pleasure, lovers of self. We see all these things happening and have been happening. So he's saying that these people, these slaughterings of fools, the sacrifices of fools, they killed their time. They sacrificed their time foolishly. Why don't they know to do evil? Because they have no knowledge. Because they rejected the knowledge. He says, my people perish for lack of knowledge. Because you've forgotten the Torah of your Elohim. Therefore, he said, I reject you as priests from before me and reject your children. Hosea 4:6. Important information. So now let's do the big connection, and then we'll close things off. So let's go to 1 Chronicles chapter 23, verse 30 and 31. I'm in Ecclesiastes. There we go. 1 Chronicles 23:30, and what we have here is this is when David bought the Temple Mount, and now they are sanctifying the Temple Mount and putting the tabernacle there, and they're doing regulations of worship, and then this continues into King Solomon's time until the temple was removed by Nebuchadnezzar in the Babylonian exile. So 1 Chronicles 23:30, and to stand every morning to thank and praise Yahuwah, and so at evening, and for all the ascending offerings to Yahuwah on the Sabbaths and on the new moons and on the appointed times, by number according to the right ruling upon them continually before Yahuwah. So I want you to see this right here. Remember, I told you to remember this, remember that. I told you to remember thank and praise. Well, here's thank and praise. We have 5 points that we're going to remember. Thank, praise, and then we have in blue Yahuwah in 3 spots. So there's Yod He Wah He, that's in blue. And then in teal we have ascending offerings connected with sacrifices, and then we have the word continual. So thank and praise in yellow. We have Yahuwah's name in blue. We have ascending offerings in teal, and then in green we have the word continual. So, what is this continual sacrifice of thank and praise in this what? Well, let's look at this big reveal. Hebrews chapter 9. Remember where we're at. Remember that these things are a parable for the present, not the future time, the present time in which these thusia, these zabak, these sacrifices offered, these original things are unable to perfect the one serving, because these foods and drinks and different washings and fleshly regulations are imposed until a time of setting matters straight. And then Messiah is that high priest through a greater and more perfect tent that is not made of this creation, and does so once and for all as he goes into the most holy place with the blood of his own, which obtains everlasting redemption. Now later on in this book, in Hebrews chapter 13, he says, we have no lasting city here, but we seek the one coming. Well, what city is it that he's talking about? Well, it is told right in verbatim terms, you have drawn near the Mount Zion into the city of the living Elohim, to the heavenly Yerushalayim, there it is, heavenly Jerusalem, to the myriads of Malachim, myriads of angels, to the entire gathering and assembly of the firstborn. That's a code word for Israel. That's Exodus chapter 4:22. We can go with that. Enrolled in heaven, so that means that they're enrolled in heaven. And to Elohim, the judge of all, and to the Ruach of righteous men made perfect, and to Yahushua, the mediator of a new covenant, to the sprinkling, the blood of sprinkling, which speaks better than the blood of Abel, of Habel. So going into, now that we know what that is in Hebrews 13, I was in 12. Let me go back in 13. 13:14, it says, we have no lasting city here, but we seek the one coming. That sets the stage. The previous chapter tells us this is New Jerusalem. And in Elohim as a spirit, we worship him in spirit and truth. That's John chapter 4, 20 through 24. We covered that already. And that we need to worship in spirit and truth. And we'll get into more of that in the Two Witnesses study in the future. So here we have, through him then, let us continually offer up a thusia, zabach, sacrifice of praise to Elohim. That is the fruit of our lips, giving thanks to his name. And do not forget to do good and to share, for with such zabach Elohim is well pleased. So do you see there the connections? Let's go back. Let's do it, because there's a little bit of space in between here. We have the word thank, we have the word praise, we have Yahuwah in 3 spots, we have a reference to sacrifice and ascending offerings, and we have the word continual. So what do we have in Hebrews 13 verses 14? We have the word thanks, we have the word praise, we have his name here, and then we have a reference to sacrifice, and then we have the word continual. So let's, and I've talked about this a couple times. I think that I should at least show it so that you understand of where it's at. I've talked about it, but it's at my fingertips here. John chapter 4, verses 20. Our fathers worshipped on this mountain, but you people say that in Yerushalayim is the place where one needs to worship. Yahushua, Jesus said to her, woman, believe me, the hour is coming when you shall neither on this mountain nor in Yerushalayim worship the Father. He's saying this temple system, the hour is coming that this temple system in Jerusalem, or this whatever temple system in Samaria, he's talking to the Samaritan woman at the well, he says the hour is coming while you shall neither on this mountain nor in Yerushalayim worship the Father. You worship what you do not know. We worship what we know, because the deliverances of the Yahudim, we'll get into this in the camouflage sos episode or series coming up in the near future of what is a Jew. Let's look at that in the future here. But the hour is coming, and now is, when the true worshipers shall worship the Father. The hour is coming, and now is. No ifs, ands, or buts. And now is when the true worshiper shall worship the Father in Ruach and Emeth, spirit and truth. For the Father also does seek such to worship him. Elohim is spirit, and those who worship him need to worship in spirit and truth. So we need to worship in spirit and truth. We need to have the faith, and we need to have the commandments. In fact, before we go back there and make these connections, let's look at that, the spirit and truth. This is going to be connected into the two witnesses study, but let's give a little taste here. Might even be talking about this in 144,000. Here's the endurance, means we have to endure to the end. That word endurance is the word ethanim in Hebrew, which is the 7th month. So I do believe that this is in reference, talking when you see the word endurance or to endure, just remember the 7th month and the feast days, Yom Teruah, Yom Kippurim, and Chag Sukkoth of the fall feast days, yet to be spiritually fulfilled, found in Leviticus 23 and other places too. But here is the endurance of the Kedoshim, the set apart ones, the holy ones, the saints. Here are those guarding the commands. There's the truth of Elohim, and the Amunah, the faith, the belief of Yahusha. So here is the faith. This is the spirit. And then here is the commands. This is the truth. And we need to be walking in spirit and truth. Okay, so now we're going to make that connection. Let's go ahead and make that big connection as we're going to make. Wow, time is just flying by. The continual sacrifice, start, stop. But what does Hebrews say? Well, Hebrews 9 talks about what? Hebrews 9 talks about a parable until a time of setting matters straight. And that these fleshly regulations are for our understanding for a spiritual system. This changing of the law, Hebrews chapter 7, 11, and 12 talk about this. This changing the law, this Melchizedek priesthood, this first covenant being replaced for a second covenant, an everlasting covenant, and then the law being written within our hearts. This is cumulative Hebrews information. And then we have in Hebrews 9 that this fleshly matter of setting things straight. And then in chapter 13, after he talks about New Jerusalem being enrolled in heaven, Hebrews 12, 22 and 23, then he says in Hebrews 12, 13, 14, we have no lasting city here, but we seek the one coming. And then he says the big reveal in verses 15 and 16, Hebrews 13, 15 and 16. He says the word thanks, he says the word praise, he says the word sacrifice, he says Yahuwah talks about his name, and then he says the word continual. There's the 5 points. So what is the continual sacrifice? Well, the continual sacrifice is not animals, because that start, stop. What has been continual? The praise and worship of Elohim has been continual by the believers. But what does it say in Daniel? Because remember, Abomination of Desolation, that's what we're talking and linking this in with. What does it say regarding Daniel chapter 11 verses 31, that he takes that which is continual away? And then in verse 36, he talks about this thing that arose, the strong ones that arise and take that stronghold, that set apart place. In verse 36, it says that he speaks as though he is God, which connects with 2 Thessalonians 2:4, that he says that he is God on the temple of God, right? That he sets himself above God, or says that he is, words of blasphemy. So are we maybe getting a connection with the Abomination of Desolation? Might be. Well, let's get into the last episode, as we're going to link all things together. But before we link all things together, I do want to close off. Sorry for going so over time. I thank you though, but I hope you're hungry. I hope you've been just really, really thirsty and hungry for his truth, as we have been gotten into some real spiritual meat. I love it. I thank you for the first few parts of this, of season 2. They might be more not so scripturally backed, but now we're getting into the real meat of the material. So thank you for being here. Please share this information. if you like it, I ask, just let me know. It helps me to know that it's nice to hear feedback, more than just like, maybe leave a comment or something, but I thank you for being here. If you haven't yet, a subscription, I don't really, I would rather have a comment or a like than a subscription. But I'll take what you want on that. I just hope this information gets out and helps educate the masses. So with that, let's go ahead and do our last section here of don't cast pearls before swine. So we're going to be in our jar of pearls. That we have here. So what are we going to be talking about today with our jar of pearls? I take a certain verse here, and let's go to Hebrews chapter 11. And let's go to Hebrews 11. Chapter. This is the Heroes of Faith chapter, and let's go into the connection of what we're talking about. Talking about Abraham by faith, right? He sojourned in a land of promise, that he was looking for the city having foundations, whose builder and maker is Elohim. By faith also, Sarah herself was enabled to conceive seed, and she bore a child when she was past the normal age, because she deemed him trustworthy who had promised. And so from one, as good as dead, were there born numerous of the stars of the heaven, as countless as the sand which is by the seashore. In faith all these died, not having received the promises, but seeing them from a distance, welcomed and embraced them, and confessed they were aliens and strangers on the earth, not of this world. Right? For those who speak this way, make it seem like they make it clear that they seek a fatherland. So now this is it right here. This is what I wanted to share, the pearl. But now they long for a better place, that is a heavenly. Therefore, Elohim is not ashamed to be called their Elohim, for he has prepared a city for them. So there's the goal. Where are we going? What city did he prepare for us? That our Father has many staying places, and if he did not, he would not have told us. So remember to guard your heart, guard your soul, guard the Ra, pay the toll.